Hello, everybody. Welcome. Apologies for the jank just then. Messing with Streamlabs music. Obviously, I should do that before the stream starts, really. But today, we're going to be focusing a lot of it on this fella. How long it takes, we may go on to his courtier. But I want to focus a lot of time and attention on the king here. Well, on the Gold Warden. He's royalty. Extended family. Now, sadly, the wash didn't quite hit all the little areas I'd have liked it to, but I think we can work with that. I think we can. What we'll do real quick, actually, is we'll just get a little wash, and we'll just do a more direct wash with this. Before I continue any further, by the way, I just want to do a massive thank you to Wyram VT and user Duna for the follows. I appreciate it very much, especially as you followed while I wasn't even streaming, which means a lot to me. Again, massive thank you to both of those. I know where one of you came from. The other, thank you for finding me. As for Wyram, thank you for giving me attention back. I very much appreciate it. And of course, best luck to you yourself, as you are also a streamer. As that happened last time, for those who hadn't seen my stream yesterday, well, sorry, day before yesterday, something else was meant to happen here, but didn't. Scheduling and things happening. Last time we painted, well, we started painting on a variety of the ghouls and Gold Warden here. We didn't finish it, but we also did get pretty far in on one of our. I think we did a bit of work on both of our flares. So those are looking quite good bit of progress in them, and I'll continue on progress with them, depending on how long it takes me to do this. But we are going to be focusing mostly on the Gold Warden. Now, this will be the last one of these type of streams I do for a little bit, just because I want to try and get the VTuber working properly with it first, and once I've got that sorted out, then we'll do loads more. We'll do loads more of them. Give my word on that. Now, as for today, as I say, we're going to be focusing on the Gold Warden. We're going to be focusing our attentions on getting him fine order. I've adjusted where my lights are as well, so it hopefully should be a little more pleasant on the eyes. I realised it was quite bright before, because his lamp over here is quite bright, so I'm hoping, you can't really see what my hand's just gone then, but I'm hoping that it will look nicer for you. I'll have to play around with the zoom a bit on this camera as well. To be honest, I'll probably get a different camera. I suspect it's because it's a double webcam setup. Wouldn't shock me if that was the issue, which my bloody luck. But I thought I'd give it a go. I thought I'd see how I feel about it. Now I know I kind of like it. I'll see about getting it working. A format that works for me. Because I assure you, when little something I've got in the works is done, I'm not going to be not using it. Absolutely not. It is going to be my predominant thing I use. So we're going to get the hand cam working for that, I assure you. Just going to get it into those areas where I couldn't get it in before, or didn't get it in before. Back of this hand, for example. I'm just gonna make sure the skin's all evened out before we highlight it up. So it's a very light wash on those areas where I didn't quite get it all on. Something as well that I, of course, recently picked up. I mentioned it in my most recent videos, that I wanted to start doing a little bit of reading. I realised it's been a long time since I've done reading, like a book, properly. So I decided to pick up the Mistborn series on recommendation from a friend of mine. You'll know him as Onyx. He does a currently does Valorant, but we've done some Darktide together, and a very long Stellaris stream. I don't know why he decided to stream for that long, but he did. Thankfully, he's not doing quite as long streams now, which good. I'd always warn him he'll burn out if he doesn't. And but you know what? I commend him for the effort because I don't know if I could do a stream quite that long. But I suppose it helps if you're not on your own. I will say, doing a stream solo, you got to put a lot more of yourself into it. Got to really keep yourself talking, keep yourself motivated, keep yourself in check. Whereas if you're with someone else, you can kind of bounce off someone. Of course, that's the pleasure of having chat as well. Of course, you can bounce off them, but if no one's feeling like talking, which is totally fine, by the way, you're not, then obviously I will make sure to keep the energy. And I must say, for 12 hours, that's... Ooh, I'd never quite pull it off. But one day, maybe. Right, now I've got that wash into those areas I can get it on before. We're gonna get off with base paint. That's for later. There are some guests in the house, so if you do hear any noises out the blue, I do apologise. The mic normally doesn't pick up anybody, but it might just. Try and check this on camera so it doesn't look nearly as sus. Why did I say sus? Oh, for God's sake, man. Oh, Jesus Christ. I am becoming a zoomer. Well, let's say becoming one. Zoomery. So I feel like an old man, even though I'm the same generation. I do feel like an old man next to some people. It saddens me. So, what we're going to do for the wings in this case, we're going to do a nice purple, I think. What I might do as well is do a nice little wash of purple. I believe I have it around here somewhere. I believe it's Druchii Violet, if I recall rightly, or Druchii Violet. Ironic enough, a name that doesn't have much meaning currently, although when they bring back Old World, it kind of will. Saying that, guess which faction isn't getting a... Well, there's several factions that aren't getting books, which annoys me a bit. They've got, like, one's Forces of Good or Forces of Evil. I'm sorry, the Tomb Kings... I wouldn't call them the good guys, but then most factions of Warhammer aren't the good guys. That's why people like the setting. The Tomb Kings I wouldn't call super evil either. Like, Cetra's an arrogant prick, but... he's just that. Fairly arrogant. I wouldn't say he's evil. But it's interesting. Obviously, the Tomb Kings and Bretonnia are the first ones, which are the two armies that don't have any AOS representation in the slightest. So it's good to see they're getting some love finally, after a long time. But I will say it's a shame that armies like the Skaven. I know they're doing a civil war at the moment, but you tell me they're not going to be fighting anything they come across as well? Like, it does baffle me a little bit, that choice. And as a lover of the Skaven myself, it's an absolute tragedy that we don't have Skaven having any fun in the old world yet. They're going to be relegated to a PDF, which will probably not be very good, deliberately. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. Interestingly enough, no cafe. Despite the fact that cafe is, like, kind of one of the biggest selling points of the faction. Of the revival, should I say? Like, it's no small thing that they're bringing back. Well, they're bringing new factions in. we've heard bits about Grand Cafe through extended bits of lore, but we've not actually seen their armies until, of course, you see them in Total Warhammer 3, which I'm hoping Creative Assembly does start doing better with. I must admit, I want to love the game, and I'd love to stream the game more. I will probably do so once I can suss out why VTube Studio has a little freak out with it. I suspect it might be the multi-streaming, and if that does not to be the case, it might be some things I just don't multi-stream. It's telling me it's unstable at the moment, but what I saw from last time, the VOD looked alright, so we'll see how it goes. This an extra layer. Help it along. Do let me know how the music is, by the way. If it is too loud or in the way, please let me know. You should have been able to hear my voice. I'd like to hope I've got my gains all right by now, but obviously if I need to adjust the gains, then I can do. And in case anyone doesn't know, I don't mean muscle. No. I'll have to get, speaking of, though, we'll have to get back to exercising again. I've been a bit of a fat shit this Christmas. I really have. But then again, haven't we all? It's that time of year, isn't it? You know. I know I've definitely been drinking a little too much, which I decided to go full just detox mode yesterday. No booze, nothing left at all, and that I think worked for me quite nicely, just to clear things up. I still feel a little bit rough, but what also happened yesterday is the Mistborn books arrived, so I've started reading those, and I must say it certainly doesn't pull its punches on the start. I know bits I probably shouldn't know at this point because I've been told them. At the time, I didn't really have much interest in reading, so I allowed some spoilers to come in, and gotta say, it's an interesting setting. I like it so far. I definitely like how sort of quite grimdark it feels. Very much advertises itself a little bit that way. Not like super grimdark or anything, but like there's definitely that air of when it says like, oh, the Dark Lords, what the Dark Lords won. Yeah, you feel that. It's a very oppressive world. I mean, the lower, so there's like a lower class in that setting, and called the Scat, I believe that's how you say it, and they were just treated horribly. Like, holy shit. Like animals almost, but nobles will mess around with them, and in that way, yes. But there's a law where they can't have children with them, so they end up having to kill them. Because the Lord Ruler, who's the sort of the Dark Lord in question, who's won, he doesn't want them to have children with them because that's a problem. We get a bit of an introduction to them, but also introduction to someone who can use what's called Allomancy, which is one of the magic systems in that world. And yes, there's admittedly one little thing about the setting that, and I know more than what the prologue tells you because I've been introduced to it by a friend. But what I would say is that might put you off a little bit is it isn't throw in your face in this prologue, thankfully. But if you're wondering, I'm not like a super quick reader when it comes to books. I normally don't like reading because of well, it might as well be borderline dyslexia. I don't know if it's quite dyslexia. I don't sound dyslexic, but I sometimes think I might as well be. God knows my spelling, grammar, and reading isn't the best. I can read, but you know, it's like not something I enjoy. So I'm trying to some out, you know. But basically, in that prologue, you get introduced to Allomancy, which is the magic of essentially eating metal and gaining properties from it. In this case, we are demonstrated to what tin does when he burns it, essentially, which means he's using it. Now, I'm aware you can do something more than just use it. I think you can, I forget the term for it now, but you can, so when you use it, and that's when you really push it. I forget the name of that term. But there's actually a TTRPG for it, and I played in that with Onyx and JD Moss, as a little tester. He was playing what was called a Mistborn, which is someone who can use all the elementic metals. You got gold, iron, tin, pewter, a lot of little metals, copper. They all have different abilities, right? All different things they can do. Shit, is that on there? This might be the wrong size brush really for some of this, but I can clean up if need be. But 10 essentially lets you enhance your senses. Oh, jeez, I've painted way too much purple on his arm there. I'll clean that up. But yeah, so essentially 10, that allows you to hear things better, smell things better, enhance your the natural senses, and so he could hear that. Use that because he heard the commotion, and he used that to hear it better. And essentially, the commotion was one of the young Scar girls was being taken by the noble, and you can probably gather why she was being taken if you catch my drift. And of course, he was going to kill her afterwards, after a little bit, because again, if she ends up having his child, that's a breach of the law, the Lord Ruler said, and no one defies the Lord Ruler. I don't go into too much details now in case of spoilers, but what I know about him, he is insanely powerful. He has access to 2 of the magic systems, and has those under him that utilize the 3rd kind. He doesn't himself use it because it has risks. Also, it's pretty messed up. But something else referenced in the prologue is an Inquisitor. I'm aware these are the Steel Inquisitors. They use that 3rd type of magic. Essentially stealing powers from the other 2. Imbue it to yourself. Using a spike. Another example, which from the TTRPG, was I played a character who used pewter. Now, there are those who just use a single kind of metal. Normally, only the nobility of that are allowed to live. Any of those born from Scar are hunted down normally. But pewter lets you become an absolute unit. Essentially, at one point in a fight, we were fighting a guy who could launch coins. I believe that's steel. Lets you launch coins, or coin toss, as they're often called. Well, pewter's called a fug. And fugs, tough. Rapid healing, and super strength, basically. So, of course, I turn to the DM, Onyx, and say, well, he's launching coins at me, right? Yeah. I'm going to grab his friend that I've thrown to the floor. I've already beaten one of his friends down in the TTRPG. And I said, I'd like to throw this man. I was like, what? I'd like to throw this man. And so I grabbed him, the character did, and threw him. A absolute insane distance while I was tanking coin shots to the face because bug. As I was using my metal, it made me more resilient and do more damage. Also buffs just like physical attributes, just make you run faster and stuff. Essentially, people who master that ability are just tanks. And there's sort of 2 eras of Mistborn. This was in era 1, so it was pretty damn strong. It's pretty good in the 2nd era. You're pretty superhuman still, but 2nd era is kind of cowboy-like. So someone who's like a coin toss can make bullets go literal supersonic. You can kind of gather the idea of being a cowboy who can launch his bullets like a railgun to be beyond fun. In fact, it gets used in the novels, I believe. I don't know the scene. But there isn't just the Scar nobility, there's also another people, I forget their name, but they use the 2nd kind, where they store their own physical resources in the metal. So one of them, I think it's copper, is mined. For them, what it is, they store. Essentially, imagine if you could turn half your brain off and store that capacity. Then you could supercharge your brain by using like 150% of your brain. Essentially, that makes sense. So you're turning your brain, half your brain off for a few days, so you're impaired for a bit. Then when you get back to normal, you then have a store of just activate rapid brain. But you can use that in tandem with other stuff because they, much like Mistborns, use all their stuff. And in the second era, there's Dualborn as well, which people can use both systems. Very powerful. But the people who can do both are kind of being removed by the Lord Ruler, as he doesn't want them around. They're literally being bred out of existence. Only the one... They're essentially only allowing the ones who don't have the powers to have kids and killing the other ones. They're basically farming the other ones as, like, serfs, essentially. It's a pretty dark setting in many respects. Lord Ruler, in many respects, though, is also the only reason the world's still around. We won't go into too much detail. But it wasn't always like that. It's implied from the start that there was a time where things were better. Yeah, so I've been reading a bit of Mistborn. It's been a fairly entertaining read so far. I've not got super far in, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. No, I'm liking one of the characters. I forget his name because I'm terrible at remembering names. Some books, I've read it a few times, but he seems to be a miss. I suspect he's a Mistborn, or at least he uses Tim. But the fact he takes out a whole manor, a lord, his guards, and the soldiers he's got with him, I suspect he's a Mistborn. The character you encounter at the start. So, and he seems fairly powerful. I mean, Mistborn's use all the metals. He's launching coins. He's doing all kinds of stuff. And essentially, superhuman. And in fact, the cities are built with these people in mind because obviously these people aren't like renegades. Most of them, anyway. The ones who are noble born are the nobility. They live among society. There's actually these metal rails built along cities. And that's to let them essentially use their coin toss ability to launch themselves across cities quickly. The idea is essentially they can push against the metal and slingshot themselves. It's interesting. From what I've been informed of as well, Mistborn is in the same universe as other things from the author Brandon Sanderson, such as the Stormlight Archives, which is another series he does. I was informed Mistborn was a little easier of a read on the first, less intimidating, so I started with that, but Stormlight's on my list if I want to keep doing the whole reading thing up, and I'll be transparent. I am thinking about possibly doing like a book club style. Well, I've mentioned in a video, but I'm going to do like a book club style content, at least for Mistborn. We'll see how I feel about it. I'm essentially doing a bit of reading, making notes of what I've read, and then read some more, know how I feel about it. Apologies, I was just concentrating on a very awkward to get bit. Just going to tidy up the wings a little bit, and then I have to try and tidy up the arm that made a bit purple. There's a whole bit there that isn't even purple. Yeah, so that's what I've been reading so far. So far, it's an alright read. I'll have to see where it goes from here. It's a fairly large book, so I mean, let's see how it goes. Speaking of books, I'm probably gonna, if I do tend to keep up reading, obviously I'm gonna pick up some Warhammer books, of course. I've actually not really read any of them. I do have the audiobooks though for Fabius Biles books, I think the 1 and 2. I've listened to the first one, which I think is Clone Lord. Um, I actually quite like that. I quite like Fabius as a character. He's an evil son of a bitch, but you know what? I like him. Um, I find it very funny, and it's actually almost comedic, how he will just stare at a greater demon, like a Keeper of Secrets, which a Keeper of Secrets is nothing to sniff at. They're quite a mighty demonic creature, you know? They're not weak. A greater demon for a reason. And he just laughs. He just basically says, "You're not real. You're an apparition. You're a thing." And I find that interesting that just his pure just rejection of chaos, despite the fact he is amongst it constantly. Which is an interesting bit about some Chaos Space Marines, I find, that really only some of them have really given in to the rule's powers. A lot of them essentially haven't really given in to them per se. Like the Night Lord's a good example of this, where they don't have too much love for chaos itself. They don't really. Most of them don't use demons. Some do, but most don't. Everyone's quite like the word bearers, where they just worship it. I mean, they're the best example of once someone who's like completely devoted to chaos as a whole. Yeah, Fabius, I like it. I like his first book. He essentially, to give you a synopsis, out to me spoilers, he gets encountered by an old pupil of his, who's very much not welcome. It seems his new pupil gets accosted very quickly by Fabius Spile's new men, as he calls them. Essentially, these creatures are sort of human adjacent. They are from essentially wants to remake what the Emperor did, but in his words, better. He wants to make superior genetics to what the Emperor did. And to be honest, if anyone could pull it off, it'd be the guy who's cloned Primarchs. It's why I agree with the narrative that Chaos should have got something first, then Primaris were a thing afterwards. It's kind of been that Crawl's been at it for 10,000 years, but Crawl's not done the things Fabius Bile's done. And if he has, we should be made aware of that, because that's a significant thing that'll change a lot of opinions. If Crawl has achieved some of the feats that Fabius has, then we have a lot to talk about on that one. Fabius has essentially made a whole new species of humanity. Obviously, on that planet where he's on, there are a lot of beastmen and other creatures, but interestingly as well, he has a cabal of chaos apothecaries. And it's actually something that they don't mention too much, but you think about it, there are no playable chaos apothecaries bar him. But here's the thing. They're apparently a rare thing. Obviously, very few people know how to implant Space Marines in the Chaos side, because obviously, Chaos being how it is, it's a violent place. But one of Fabius Bile's underlings, essentially his minions, well, I won't call him a minion, associate, I guess, with the correct term, a word, no, excuse me, not a word, I don't think a word would ever work with Fabius, a World Eater, excuse me, a World Eater, who uses chemicals to subdue the nails. And if you know anything about the World Eaters, that's a hell of a task. Like, it's actually very, very impressive that someone can hold off the nails, especially when Khorne has his claws tight on the World Eater. I keep mixing the two up. I know they're all Khornate warbands that are kind of a blend of the two. The Word Eaters, I mean, that's That could be an interesting name of them. Actually, like a bunch of word bearers that have gone completely cornate. But the word bearer, the World Eaters. I will get it right eventually. Christ, on a bike. The World Eaters. They are very much in Khorne's clutches at this point. It's sad, but they really are just things of Khorne now. So the fact he's able to like withstand the nails and even like push them back using chemicals is honestly extremely impressive. I forget the name of the chap. I do apologize. I remember certain names for some of these. But this pupil who seeks out Fabius, he essentially asks for his help. He sort of lures him out, and he asks him to join him and the the joyous host. I don't quite recall the names of the warband now, but essentially, there are a lot of people in the Emperor's Children who want him to lead again because he did lead the Emperor's Children for a while. Interestingly enough, he essentially, while they were still forged in the Legion, he essentially made Canticle City, which was this grand place. And honestly, it sounds almost quite idyllic for them. The problem was is that he went messing with things he probably shouldn't have because, well, I guess the best way to describe it is this. Imagine if someone you care about passed away, and then someone cloned them. You maybe have some very strong feelings about this person. Very strong feelings. Maybe you hated them. You probably can gather you might not be too chuffed to find out that someone's gone and just resurrected them like that, against your will. That's what he did. He resurrected Horus. This as the sons of Horus were essentially rejecting their father. So when they found out that Daddy Dearest had got back up again, well, they weren't too pleased. And so the newly forged Black Legion descended upon Canticle City and annihilated it, killing. In fact, Abaddon himself killed Horus, claimed the Talon of Horus, his. This was before he had his sword, by the way. The sword came much later. Now, that sword's a whole of a beast. Music's been a bit funny. The sword, yeah, that sword's a whole of a thing. Drachny and the one demon the Emperor couldn't kill permanently. I found it very interesting. The Emperor can seemingly kill just about any demon. That thing he just couldn't. Getting back to the main events, really. Obviously, he killed Horus, Abaddon did, and then sent the Emperor's children into complete disarray, capturing their legion. Almost entirely. Many of them did shatter like that. Khan the Betrayer basically calls the word bearer World Eaters, I swear to God. Calls the World Eaters. Chapter. I don't know why those two in particular. I want to say the other constantly. I have word bearer on the brain, apparently. The dark gods have sinked in deep as I'm painting a unit of death. Although I suppose in 40k, vampires are a chaos thing. Ironically enough. I wouldn't be out of place as a kind of mutant horde. By vampire standards in AOS, he's a mutant, so that's. Obviously, after that, the Emperor's children shattered, and Fabius went into hiding. So a lot of them blamed him for it. Obviously, it was him who started playing God, or playing God Emperor rather. But he essentially saw it as a failure, yes, but then realised, well, he can clone Primarchs. In fact, interesting enough, there's an actual pure, untainted clone of Fulgrim that's been given to Trazyn the Infinite in exchange for a pure Emperor's Children gene seed. Of course, Trazyn, of all people, the analogy of any 40k player, this horde of guys. Which, actually, there's another book, by the way, Infinite and Divine. I've not read it. I know I should. If I do keep this whole book review thing, I will. I will read it. That's a solemn vow to you, dear viewer. No matter when you're hearing this, if I have kept up doing that, you may send this video to me as a reminder if you wish. If I'm somehow still at this years later, or months later, who knows how long this keeps going. However long I endeavour to keep up the streamer hobby. Which, by the way, I think I will keep going. I haven't felt the sort of... As much as there are times where I partly wonder if this is a good idea to keep going with this, I'm enjoying it so far. It's a journey, right? And it's been an interesting journey so far. And I feel like I've gone quite far. Just my first year. Not even my first year. It's not even been a year. So I'm not too upset of how things have gone in just the short couple of months. I mean, hell, recent growth. It's been fantastic. At least for the foreseeable future, I will be continuing. No matter how small or how few people are watching. I'd like to hope eventually I'll find you or you'll find me. So, I get the odd drop in now and then. I do try not... If anything, I've got the Twitch manager in front of me, but I'll be frank, I'm not looking at the view count. I've actually got it hidden because it's just not helpful. Number go up's nice, makes monkey brain go ugh, but it's also just... It's an evil thing, honestly. It really is evil. Because, think about it. What if it goes down? Which it does. You're gonna feel kind of sad, aren't you? You feel kind of upsetty about it. It's like, well, you shouldn't do. But, of course you will. And why wouldn't you? Belcher. I don't know where my paints are. Path Witch Flash. What I need. Rakoth. Now, back to the main skin. As I get some paint on my fingers. I was tempted to use gloves to hide my hands, because my hands are a complete mess, but I decided against it on the grounds of paint will inevitably get on them. And I don't have any the airport gloves. Otherwise I made the joke, I assure you. Made the old joke. You know it, you know it. You the airport search. Right. Thin this down nicely. Now I'm gonna actually highlight with some Rakoth Flesh first. The reason being, what reminder was that? That's not relevant for this month. Okay. Apologies, need to just quickly check what that was, in case it was anything I needed to actually deal with. Thankfully, though, I've already sent my money I send. Of course, back to our dear Fabius. He essentially was brought onto the ship with a bunch of other Emperor's children, who weren't the happiest to see him. Also, another character who is not a Space Marine, but he is wearing power armor. Essentially, power armor, Chaos Space Marines, is obviously fused to them. And when she killed the Space Marine that used to wear it, it kind of called to her, and she put it on. And it kind of morphed her size. Her and many of the others are part of the Joyband, who were this sort of group around this one lord, who was very close to Ascension. He'd asked Fabius to join him, as he was going to assault Eldar Craftworld. Not a small task, mind you. Eldar Craftworld, if you know, they are powerful things. They are not to be trifled with lightly. They're well guarded, well defended, and frankly, not exactly something to assault lightly. Especially the Emperor's children, the Eldar would sniff them from a mile away. And the reason this lord wanted Fabius is he could build something to help shield them from the Eldar's senses long enough to get close. If the Eldar even sniffed the Emperor's children coming in close, of course, well, they're tainted by Slaanesh, aren't they? If there's one thing the Eldar are very good at sniffing out is when Slaanesh is trying to grab their souls. So, of course, Fabius goes looking for ways to get it working. He does initially reject the offer, and many of the Joybound do attack him, though he quite effortlessly defeats them with a combination of, well, the fact he can get roided up on various steroids, but also the fact that he has essentially a pimp cane, lack of a better term, that can just absolutely induce agony upon people that he got from a Demon Prince. He stole it. Of course, once he'd sort of led him the law, and the Lord spoke to him, the Lord was a bit much for him, so he'd set up to fight him. But Fabius wasn't too happy about the whole situation, truth be told. Not that I blame him. He just wanted to be left alone to do his work. The new men were far more important to him than this, but simple choice in the matter. One group on the ship who were quite fond of him and were very happy to have seen him again, were the Noise Marines. Now, if you don't know, Noise Marines were originally known as the Cacophony. Or the Cacophony. Basically, they were Emperor's children who were surgically augmented by Fabius Bile himself. Surgically augmented extensively, I might add. To a level that's just grotesque. But it allowed them to use these sonic weapons that were made when they first accidentally touched the music of Slaanesh. They're always looking to recapture that music, that feel, that high. These are people who would literally blast you to bits of their sonic weaponry and then sniff you up like a drug. Like, that crazy. But they also are very happy that Fabius is there. Obviously, he made them like that. So of course, they're very elated. Now, you might wonder, how does Fabius get the fleet so close to the Eldar Craftworld? He does get them in. Well, essentially built a machine to channel power of the Noise Marine through it. Poor Noise Marine does perish, but I will say it's an impressive feat. impressive enough that it calls it mass demonic incursions just from the sheer presence of it. And to be fair, the book does demonstrate how powerful a noise marine is, because a squad of them just gets into that craft world and just begins vibing the entire thing to pieces. Like, Wraithbone's pretty susceptible to psychic influence, but jeez, their sonic weapons do numbers on it. It's a shame they're not. Well, they are playable on tabletop. They're just models aren't very good. Because honestly, they seem pretty cool. I'd love to see them redone like the World Eaters. I almost did World Bearers. I almost fucking did. Or Death Guard, or Thousand Suns. So hopefully Emperor's Children aren't too far away. But interestingly, with the Fabius novels as well, it shows off the Harlequins quite extensively. And the Harlequins are such a strange faction, I will say. They're such a strange bunch. You think you know Eldar and their aloof strangeness, and then you meet the bloody Harlequins. And I will not lie, they are just the oddest bunch. Essentially, everything they do is always tends to be part of a play or a musical from Eldar culture. Currently, the play they keep trying to do on Fabius, or at least in the first book anyway, they encounter him in the second book as well. But they keep doing, they call it the King of Feathers. The idea of a lord who went into hiding away from his people, and someone had to bring him back. That someone essentially being that student in their eyes. Of course, what they don't tell the chap is the guy who tries to bring back the King of Feathers has to die. You see, that's the trick with Harlequin. So if you want to beat them, you gotta know what musical they're playing. If you don't know their musical, well, you will not survive. Simple as that. You just will not. Because the way they move, the way they act is predictable only if you understand Eldar culture. And normally, if you manage to get one, it's because that one was meant to be gotten. But if you know who to shoot, which Fabius does, thankfully for him, then you know how to survive. I don't know if to whiten up enough, but let me. Apologies, I'm just trying to get some white in these eyes so I can do. There we go. Right. But yeah. Obviously, I'm not going to say too much about the book, so I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched it, read it, or listened to it in audiobook form. But I do recommend the Fabius Bile books. The audio tapes are quite nice. The audio tapes. Bloody hell! I'm so sorry. I cannot speak. Let me just get a quick bit of water, actually. Yeah, the audiobook's quite good too. I forget the chap who does them for the Black Library, but they're decent enough. I like them. I do have the second one to go into, but I didn't get super far into it. I sort of stopped at a certain point and I went up finishing it, but essentially, the second book, it looks like, will be involving Eidolon, who was a very high-ranking member of the Emperor's Children from the Horus Heresy age. He's still alive, apparently. To his Fabius' surprise. Well, actually, not to his surprise, sorry. He is the reason he survived. At least initially, because Fulgrim removed his head, basically. Yeah, Fabius can bring back a man who got decapitated. It's quite a feat. But apparently, Eidolon gained a unique sense of humour after that event. Apparently, his sense of humour involves the burning of worlds, which is a whole thing. A whole bundle of issues to get into there. A bit of this, I think. Gene Stealer purple. Just going to apply a little bit of this to the wings. Pardon the paint there. I use this paint a lot, so there should be plenty of it. It should be nice and fresh. Obviously, anyone who's popping in, if you don't, I do apologize if I am spoiling anything book-wise, anything I'm talking about. Please just shout at me if you don't want me to say anything more on the subject. By the way, I will understand. Trust me, I get it. I would regale you more with the story of these guys, but there's not a whole lot for the faction other than very recent lore, but they are slowly getting a bit more. And the ghouls, I think the ghouls is quite nice, and it's quite common to Sigmar armies, but the ghouls have a very nice thing about this, is that you can really make your own lore. I've not thought about it too hard for my own ghouls, but my current idea is that a lot of them are essentially part of a sort of fallen kingdom that's which is quite common for ghouls. It's pretty much they go the whole thing with them. But they're all sort of a fallen kingdom from the realm of shadows, I'm thinking. That's why a lot of them are so pale. Essentially. My thinking is that their kingdom was likely embroiled in war between Malekith and Be'lakor. Of course, those poor humans that were without home, of course, went mad and eventually found by a bunch of abhorrents that were in the dark themselves. Thinking that my court will have a good use of Morbag Knight as well. But of course, are very loyal to Shuron, so will defend his honor should he require him. Get a bit more of that purple on. I'm just doing a fairly light-ish kind of light purple on sort of the edges of this. Now then, I will be posting updates of if I do continue to paint these guys, which I will continue to paint, I should say. I'd like to keep them on stream, but I want to try and get at least this guy done on stream for you guys, so at least got someone to show on stream. But as far as after this, I don't know when the next time I'm going to do a painting stream. I'll be completely honest. I'm not going to say they're going to become my predominant content. Probably won't. Not for a bit, potentially. Never say never, though. I will do another one, though. I have my word on that one. I will be doing another one. I think this is a good idea. I think these get my creative juices flowing, and it breaks up any monotony I'm feeling on the gaming side if I do feel the monotony at all. Just do a little bit of a inside ring there. Roll my brush more of a point for good measure. Now, obviously, the Bill Caiaphas Kane, Hero of the Imperium, that's another set of books that I've heard good things about, honestly. And that's part of my list. Inquisitor Eisenhorn, of course. Of course, that'll be on my list. Ooh, little overspill. Eisenhorn's definitely on my list. There's some wacky and interesting things in those books series, so I want to give them a little nosy. I say wacky. There's some interesting feats I've heard about which sound kind of insane that I want to just read for myself. Okay. Look at that in the light. Talking about highlights is we do need to actually look at the light as far as where to really oh, my phone's going off so much. Assume just emails and stuff. I'll have to look at that at some point. I apologize for anyone who's working with me who emails or messages me. I do try and look at stuff fairly consistently, but on stream I probably won't be looking because unless it's something fairly important, like a certain little something I've got coming up. That is an exception. That one I will look at because, well, simply put, that is directly for streaming. What I will say about doing VTubing over just regular streaming is it's interesting. You essentially pick the hard route. I'm not gonna lie. You do pick a slightly harder path as far as getting stuff set up because there's much more. I'm not saying like, oh, it's so much harder. But it is a bit because you've got to mess with software that you probably wouldn't be familiar with before. Because, well, you probably wouldn't have heard of VTube Studio before. I didn't. And I looked into VTubing. I was like, wow, okay, this is interesting and also concerning. I think it's all purple finally done with, at least. The skin details then. I guess that is skin. I guess purple, the purple wing brains and the cloth. Just little bits I can clean up, but I can do that. Okay, I'm gonna do some pallid witch flesh now. An extra shake. And we are using the artificial layer brush for this because, frankly, you need the extra detail, I think. I do anyway. This is, I must admit, compared to the Archregent here, I think the Archregent's a little easier to paint than this guy. There's something less. I should hold it up higher for you guys, really, shouldn't I? There's less going on. Well, there's a bit more going on as far as textures and stuff. There's metallics and bits on him, but I find he was a little easier to paint up than this guy was. Don't quite remember how I got that pale, but I'm hoping I can sort of re-remember it. It's been a while. He's kind of what I'm going for. Pale white, the rusted, darkened metals, and of course purple. It's a sort of pop colour. I always like having that colour that pops. I've ranted and raved about this to people who will listen, but I love fairly monochrome, kind of like black-white greys against a really strong popping colour. I love that aesthetic. I don't know if I can ever really truly pull it off as well as I've seen various artists and various people do it, but I love that aesthetic. I love that kind of, especially if it's a really vibrant red, orange, green. I do like that a lot. It's a bit quiet as I just do his face there. Yeah, I very much enjoyed that aesthetic. It's just, it's nice. It vibes with me. What can I say? I just love that how that one color pops and it sticks out so much. It appeals to me in a very visual way. I would never call myself an artist, but I can appreciate color theory put into good use. I can appreciate all these little things. And it's something I try and apply into my own work. It's something I try and apply when I do my models. I wish I could draw, because there's a lot of things I'd love to be able to draw. And maybe I might do a feuds and, set off on the journey to try and draw, He did a pretty fine job, would you say? I mean, I don't know if if you guys have seen his little journey where he's supposed to draw, but I find it very interesting, really cool that he's done that. It's a really wholesome message to me that, you can learn something new from scratch. You don't have to have natural talent. You can actually learn. And I think that message speaks to me quite a bit, actually. Speaks to me, and it definitely helps me as I sort of go through this journey. Makes it a lot easier, that's for sure. Knowing that I'm not the only one who's like there trying to learn stuff, and even one of the biggest creators ever still has like things he can challenge himself on. It's nice to see that even at the top of the tower you can still improve, still grow. And even then you're not immediately best at everything. I like that. It tells me, someone who's at the bottom of the pile, that, hey, you got a chance. Slim, but you got one. I mean, bloody slim, but hey. One thing I can control, and that's the thing I think I've had to remind myself, and I say to anyone else, worry about things you can control. Because things you can't control, you just can't control, right? I can't control if you'll find me. I can do my best to put myself out there, but that doesn't mean you'll find me. And if you do, that doesn't mean you'll find me interesting. You might just think, God, this guy's boring, he's shit. He's, very uninteresting. It's fine. Everything's alright. Bloody hell. Had a heart attack then. I'll say. You might find me rather shit, rather uninteresting, very, lackluster as an entertainer. I get it. I'm always open to suggestions. I realise it may be a little bit taboo talking about this kind of stuff on stream whilst I'm streaming. But I don't want it to come across that I'm complaining. I'm not complaining. I'm going through the motions like everyone else that do this. And I'm excited for the next steps. Excited for where it's going. The next sort of big part of the journey. As this body on this here, I'm going to gore him up quite a bit. Just the back I need to do now. Get more of a point on my brush before I do this. Don't want to mess up the purple I spent ages doing. Alright. That's the skin part, I think, highlighted up nicely. I don't know how well you'll see him in this light, but right. We'll try and get a good picture of him for Twitter later. I think you'll see him there a bit better. Alright. Next step then. On the great journey. Where do we want to go next? I feel like metallics. I think it is time. Yeah, I think it's time for metallics. Right. That's a little bit scary. But that's Dawnstone. I could do non-metallic. I don't think I'm good enough to do non-metallic metal. We will want the Golden Flash for later. Chromatic blue for the eyes. Don't think there's any fluff on him, so no gold for fur required. Bit of this actually for a scorpion, yep. Shade. These are the things that I need. I'm just going to shade these up real quick. Oh, fucking dodgy me doing that. But it's necessarily part of what I need to do. So, oh, also leather actually. Let's do that real quick then. The contrast wildwood should do the job for the leathers. Dark sort of used, abused leather. Obviously, with contrast paints, they can go a little awry, so I'm going to be very bloody careful after all the work I've done. So just being very careful not to overspill. I will be doing some things to dirty up everything though. Because obviously it would be wrong. Let's just stay clean looking. As much as these fellas might believe themselves to be clean and pristine, they are far from it. We will dirty this guy up, don't you worry. We will dirty him up. The necessary levels. Not the blood and the gore as required. Point back on the brush. That's the bit here. Right, that should be fine for the leather areas. Here as well on the ground. Stone as well, actually, just dirty it up a little. Do a bit of dirtying up now on some things. Just get a more weathered look in there. But we will do more of that in a bit. Cryptic Armor Chain will be our friend in a lot of that. That Cryptic Armor Shade is... It's very dark pigmented, but honestly, it's very good. To really get that dirty look on things, it'll do the job beautifully. Right, so that's our leathers done. We will then want... That's the wrong... Actually, no, that's the metallics. So that's there. Did I also get the other thing? Right. Bit of Lead Belcher. Great paint this is. Can't shout its praises enough to the sun, honestly. Such a good metallic paint. I do like Iron Hands and Iron Warrior Steel. One of them. The other one that they've got, which is quite similar to Lead Belcher, that's good too. But the old Lead Belcher is the OG. And it is the GOAT. Now, the only metallics this guy really has is his keys and some jewellery. Alright. We are going to differentiate some of the keys up using a brass scorpion, and then we're going to wash them both with some cryptic armor shade. Right. Anything else we want? Metallic, if there is anything else. Got a bit of belt buckle. Okay. Oh, of course, the jewellery. Paint lead belcher. He's not quite as well adorned as the Archregent. There's a big old shoulder pad on. I'm hoping that Ghoul King sat on the throne gets released separately, by the way. That should be a fun level thing. And also just a nice new Ghoul King sculpt. The only one they've done, which is really annoying that they've not released that. Honestly, that's such a nice. Is it one? I think it was a New Year's thing, and they just didn't redo it. I assume because they planned to use it in this. So use a bit of Cryptek, and might also use a bit of, where is it? Earthshade. We'll use the Cryptek first, because that's a darker one. Just to plan out where we want that. Again, this is a very strong pigmented wash. It's a shade, but damn, is it a strong shade. Literally tints metal. It's... So we're going to do some of these keys with it. There's a cluster of keys in it, just because they're really easy to do like that. What we'll do as well is we'll apply a bit to the bottom here. Really dirty things up. Sort of take a very light bit of it. So apply it around, sort of on the stone, around his feet. Instead of a grime, but a texture up top. I know this rock have been here a while. I mean, there's a body tied to it, so. We're going to wash the rest in Agrax. That's, I feel like it's a safer bet when it comes to pigment. Also, overspill Agrax, I can clean that up a lot easier than Cryptek. Cryptek, like I say, it dry. Them out again. This shoulder pad, before Cryptek was applied, was silver. I don't know how well you can see that in this camera. But it was silver before then. As you can see, it is now not silver, not even slightly silver. And that's what Cryptek does if you give it a good, generous wash of it. So we'll take it straight off the pot. This. Not worried about being too clean with this in particular. Bit of overspilling is actually kind of okay with this. A little bit anyway. Controlled overspilling. Some of the areas of the muscle. Gives a bit of contrast in there. The mouth as well. Inner part of the ear. I think use a little darkening, so I'm going to do that. The knuckles. Around some of the muscle, I think, on his chest. So unlike his ghoul underlings, this guy has actually got a bit of a six-pack going on. As for this dead man, I'm going to lovingly wash him in a bit more generous amount of Agrax. He will also receive a nice little bit of Khorne's touch soon, don't you worry. I have every intention of doing that for him. Some of these ropes as well. I'm going to just run this along the rope. Nice darkening on there. Again, I want to make him a little cleaner than the ghouls, because he is a lord, a noble, you know, he's actually... Excuse me. He's above them, so, you know, he's a vampire, so he's got a bit more pleasantry going on for him. So now, that all being done, I actually do have bit of sepia would run into his mouth just for the teeth, actually. So we can do that. A bit more sepia on there. Maybe too much sepia. Gotta control it, because obviously I don't want to undo my work. Check all these over to make sure they're all looking nice and yellowy. I'm quite happy how he's turning out so far. What we'll do whilst all that's drying off, we're going to do his eyes. So I will need a moment to concentrate, so I do apologise if I'm not paying attention to the chat for but a moment. It's literally my face, so I can't miss it too much, so don't worry. I will see your comment if you've made one on Twitch. If you're on YouTube and you want to chat with me, Twitch would be better. But I will occasionally look at the YouTube side, just make sure it's working correctly. You know, the only thing is, it doesn't always show me when I'm live, so What's also annoying is one tells me I've got too many. One the keyframe's too high on one and too low on the other. Apparently, when Twitch was multi-stream, it kind of, at least without me fiddling any settings, it just the default's a bit funky by the looks of it. I had to take a wild guess on why it's like that. A nice bit to perch my fingers behind as I do this. Aphomatic blue. And that into the eye. Very, very careful here. I want to point that more. Let that dry off. I like my struggle having blue eyes rather than red. I don't know. I like how they look different with the blue eye. Rather than the traditional kind of dead, like red, that you see in a lot of like evil creatures. Honestly, I'm actually really proud of how he's turning out. I wish I could do even better, honestly, because it's looking pretty good to me. I think it's time. Some blood for the Lord God. I think it is time. Now I'm going to be very careful how I apply this. I don't want to apply too much. It's on my palette. Bit on his mouth, of course. Hands. This guy very obviously uses his claws as weapons. I don't see any swords on him. His talons, I imagine, most likely too. Quite bloodied. Maybe his wingtips a little bit. A little bit on my palette. Do just little bits of subtle gore. Little bits of red just on the various tips of the wings where it's sharpest. Because this guy, his entire thing is he's meeting threats as they come in the door, so, or before they even touch the door. So if anyone's going to have a lot of carnage on him, it'll be this guy. His wings look lethal. Like, you could skewer a man with those things, I'm sure. The sort of strength these guys are packing, undoubtedly, undoubtedly, they could fold a man. I have no doubt in my mind. Now, where this fallen head is, a bit more Generous on the gore. The gore streaking down from this corpse that's sort of just strewn upon. There's no way this guy is the bloodied mess. The ghoul's nibbling at him. This arm has been removed in particular. A bit of gore on there actually, had that kind of dripping. In fact, I might even try and put like a marking on this. If I can. Claw mark in this or something. Sort of hand painted in blood or something like that. Can I try and get like a... I'm just gonna see if I can try this. Do like a on this the head of this one. Little F on his head. It's not super visible, but I was trying to use it for that. Essentially, the F being like in medieval times when they'd find a thief, they'd quite regularly brand them with an F on their head, denoting them as a thief, basically. Yeah, the only thing I need to do now is add some texture paint. And then that is, I think, him done, honestly. I'm quite pleased with how it's turned out. Quick check to see if there's anything. Yeah. Given that a good hour odd, only 2 hours on this one guy. But, like I said, I wanted to focus on him. Because I personally think he deserves the extra attention. The other chap I might give a bit of attention to today, though my hands are starting to feel it a little bit. We may do the Vargov Courtier. We'll see. Now, where is my extra tools? What? Now, I have some Armageddon dust. I believe that's what I used on my first guy. So I'm going to do the same here. Dig up a nice, healthy plum of it. Plum being the official term. We're just going to splodge that on and apply it nice and thick. Unlike other paints, this stuff wants to be thick. With as many C's as you can physically fit on that page. This stuff wants to be applied nice and thickly, but controlled. Although, a little bit on the feet isn't going to hurt. But his feet are up on the rock, so... A little bit on this rock again. It's a rock of terrain on it, so I mean... I don't think there's going to be too much upset if I just paint a little bit of this on. Now, there's a step after this, but this stuff takes on to dry. It will not happen this stream. I will instead just show it when it's done. What I will add for his base, though, is a bit of a frosty effect. The reason is I like the idea of the undead causing things to freeze over a little bit. It's something I did for my Blood Dragon Knights. And something I did for the King. And this guy's also a vampire, so get that same treatment too. There we have it. The finishing touches will be done off stream because this texture may take age to dry, but that is our Gore Warden. I'm very proud to say finished. More triumphant music to end that on as well. That couldn't have been timed better, could it, really? Now, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to go and change my water out, because obviously I've got metallic flakes in there, which is no good. And this guy, as you might notice, has no metallics on him at all. I can also use a slightly bigger brush for a bit, which would be nice. But the artificer brush will stay on hand. So, don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. I will keep the music on, don't worry. Right, there we are. We're back now. Oh, hey buddy, you right? Just came right back because I saw you keep out even. Read the emote name. Yeah. I did, my friend. Do you also do game of painting in, or you just vibing? By the way, if you're still in the chat, 1 second, I have something to show you. You'll be very glad to know. 1 second, I need to. Can I do this safely? 1 sec, because I have a little something you'll be happy to see. I have that comes up on stream. I've acquired these. That, as per your request, your suggestion. Oh, I've only just started reading them, truth be told, but I'm liking them so far. But in case you weren't looking at the stream, it was the Stormlight not Stormlight Archive, sorry, Mistborn books. The Stormlight Archives are on my list. So you'll finally, potentially, if I do get to them, you'll have someone else who knows what you're on about now. But as far as Mistborn, I will start getting the references. Once you reference Stormlight more, still. I'm only sort of very little bit in, so I wouldn't say I'm deep in yet, but excuse me. Yeah, we're gonna grab. That's the wrong paint entirely. So Rakoff looks too much like metallics from a distance. By the way, if you're on the chat still, can you let me know how the stream is? It seems to be okay from what I'm looking, but it's telling me it's unstable. I just want to check. So I'm doing that multi-streaming, and I'm sort of curious how it's going. I'm thinking I might just not bother keeping with it, but I'm at least going to do it for this week and just see. It doesn't feel like it's really got me anywhere, and I feel like everyone's more interested in following via Twitch anyway. YouTube streaming doesn't seem to have gone very far, but then maybe just the audience for it isn't there as much, for me at least. Like other content I've got ideas for, it's probably going to be more YouTube friendly. Just fine, different audiences, different wants. That's fine. People come to Twitch for live streams, YouTube for videos. That's perfectly fine, makes perfect sense. Again, so the last guy, we're going to just do the sort of raised areas of skin. Gonna leave those inner layers nice and washed in. Again, for that lovely bit of contrast you love to see. These sort of flats that hit the light, we're gonna paint them up. Do these spikes in the sepia. I need to go back and do that. Now, this guy will get a good bit of attention. I'm probably not going to give him quite the same degree as for the Gore Warden, because obviously He's a vampire, but he's a courtier. He's not a noble in the same way as the others are. I suppose because even in their insanity, they recognize this thing is completely devolved. It is. It's a devolved beast at this point. It's not the Master of the Night that the others are. I know they're pretty devolved themselves. A lot more well-to-do than this fella is. This guy is a savage motherfucker. His rules reflect it as well, actually. His rules do reflect it, which I quite like. He does have essentially a when he kills a unit, he can essentially retreat immediately. He strikes me as a hit and run character. Like he's a monstrous character that jumps in, slaughters a unit, and then pulls back into the shadows again to then do it all over. And you can kind of use some of your lords like that. There is a trait for abhorrence which lets them kind of just disappear into the night. I think anything outside of 12 just can't hit them. Which is quite nice. Now with 0 ranged units. Sadly, your ghouls don't exactly understand the intricacies of a bow, as you might imagine. Bows are a little complicated for the fellas. Some of them barely understand how to pick up weapons again, so I mean, you know, the fact they can use weapons at all is a feat. Wait, what are you printing? Print Hello World. Oh man, are you using you should use code to send me a message now. I use Python. We were trying to trigger one of my bots. I do have a couple of bots. There's Cloudbot, which should be enabled, and then there's Nightbot. Though Cloud should only react after like 5 lines, I think. If I've set it up correctly. If it works at all, I mean, I've not really had a chance to test it, truth be told. So. I think that's enough highlighting with that. Where is Halid Ulrich Flash? Get me rid of this. There we go. I'm going to further highlight this fella up. I've currently got his fur in kind of a grey. I've washed it in non-oil. I don't know. I feel like it kind of works, but if worse comes to it, I can always make it more browny. I kind of want it more grey and aged looking though, because he is a vampire. So I like the look of that a smidge more. Now we are just going to highlight those, just the very raised areas. Try and keep the even lighter flesh tone under control as much as I can. Just keeping it on that very raised muscle. Just going to get all those areas the light is touching. I'm using my lamp as a good guide for that. There's actually the benefits using this like a lamp like this. Let you get a good idea of where light is actually touching on these things. More natural highlights that way. Again, just let me know if the music's a bit too loud. It's loud enough for me, but I've turned it down as much as I can without messing with the gain on it. System sounds. I just like to have a bit on me so I can avoid the tinnitus. Or tinnitus, however you're supposed to say it. Because your boy does not like his ears ringing like a motherfucker. It's not the best. I need something to fill my ears in. Hopefully it's not ruining the experience for yourselves. If it is, I will correct it. It's a fairly simple thing to fix, if I need to fix anything at all. I need to repaint this guy's claws a bit as well. Tips the ears. So that ridge on his head. Definitely needs highlighting. Flatten the bald part of his head. Sort of stretchy protrusion of the jaw. Get that in. Edge of the jawline, which is a fairly distinguished jawline. Maybe he was more of a Chad before he went absolutely insane. I say it like he wasn't already crazy, but there's crazy and there's what this guy's on. Is a very bestial vampire. Double down the bestial end. Okay. I think that should be good on highlighting front for the skin. What I'd like to do actually is perhaps further darken the fur. So I'm going to pull out Norn more for this. I'm going to make this guy a little dirtier than the other vampire did, because, as I've said many times, he is significantly more disheveled. I think essentially with the ghouls, if they look like they could fit in Dark Souls, then you've done the right job. You know, you've done the correct thing. That's my methodology for painting these guys. If they look like they could be a Dark Souls boss, or that they could be an enemy in Dark Souls, then I've done it correctly. You know, if I could play Elden Ring and see these guys, then that's perfect. Remove that from below. We want to darken the area here. Darken that mane up a lot. Also darken this rock up a bunch. There's a bit of that super glue that's still not unpainted actually, so what I will just do, wash this out, use my own hand to dry it if I must. Get a little bit of Wraithbone, just do the area. Brush some hands, make sure it's reasonable. I would never use this brush normally for this kind of thing, but for the area it's covering, it should be fine. This brush is definitely more of a wash kind of brush anyway. that should do for that. Once that's dried off, we'll give that a bubble. To be fair, the texture paint when I applied that should help it anyway. I'm not too fussed about that. Now then, while that's drying, we will, I think, apply a big another wash. Big some Agrex for the body. How's the face looking? Yeah, so nothing crazy, but enough to sort of hit the flesh a little bit. So I still want it to have a bit of a, maybe a bit less. Because this guy in particular, he is going to be in some very bloody fights, leaving an absolute carnage in his wake. So I want him to reflect that. I'm also going to have to look at how under these boils and sort of like blisters he's got all over his body. A bit covered in them on his back. I could just do some corn red or blood for blood god. That would do it as far as like make it look bloody and nasty, but I might want to, maybe sepia, honestly. Get it more yellowy looking. Might actually fit quite nicely. This should darken the flesh areas. This guy should look about as savage as the ghouls he leads. And I think to befit my guy, like how like they're doing in cave dwelling, so being dirtied and that should work nicely. In fact, I know it'll do good for those spikes actually. A slightly darker pigmented shade, I reckon, will do the job nicely. I'm thinking Cryptek, honestly, might just do the job. I admit this guy's fairly lazy paint in comparison to the other guy, but then to be honest, this guy's not as complicated. No truth. A little bit to the lower part of these spikes. Darker. Slide it to, I think, bottom of his feet. Claws here. A little bit into his fur, actually, just to add that dirty look. Dirty his mouth a bit as well. I do not think he's a clean eater, let's put it that way. I suspect he's a very, very messy eater. What else do we want? I think it's a good time to do a bit of sepia. See if we can yellow up the flesh in some areas. Just going straight from the pot this stuff. Mix a little bit with the Agrex, that's fine. I want a little bit of that yellowing on the skin. Bruises and stuff. Where the body's just been stretched and contorted in ways that aren't natural. Or torn. Okay. How's that looking? If I bring the lamp more over so I can see it. It's bright as hell for you guys, but I can see a bit clearer now from this. To be honest, there wasn't too much left to do in this guy, really. I thought I've done it a little bit there. Don't want it to pool unless it's needed. Okay. I think the only thing left to really do on this guy now would be probably do the eyes and then texture paint the base, and then that's another one done, honestly, which is good going for me, I reckon. So whip out my old friend here. I mean, that's good going, that is. 2 done the night. Yeah. Obviously, of course, some blood guard, very important. We will apply that to a generous amount, but nothing too crazy. But we are going to give him more bloody, just everything, because, well, he's going to be more bloody. It's in his rules and it's in his law. He's a starved, crazed beast. So he's got to look more feral looking. Maybe a bit more than that. Point. It's one eye. There's a lot of things in that eye. Try that again. Okay. Good. For that eye. Okay, good, good. That'll dry nicely. Now for that blood texture. And then we can cross him after listening. Which, honestly, in 2 hours, yeah, 2 character models. Those of you who were there for my last stream, the Morbag Knight is back in his pace, with a generous amount of super glue. He has been reaffirmed to his base. Some bubbles have formed in some areas I need to address, but nothing that will affect the model itself, at least. Which is good. He's a bit further off being done, so we'll do him next. I think. We will use this brush, I think. As I said, this guy is going to be treated to more blood. Simply put, he will be more bloody. We're going to keep it reasonable. It will look bad if I don't. Plus, I don't know. There's a part of me likes to think that there's a ghoul who's been given the arduous task of keeping this guy's nails clean. The royal scrubber, if you will. The royal scrub, more accurate. His entire job is to keep this noble sir's hands and feet clean. It's dirty work being a Vargulf courtier, after all. It's very dirty work. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to go fucking bar me and do it. I'm going to paint a little bit of blood into his fur. How gory he is, I expect gore to get into his fur. No matter how good his attendant probably cleans him. Also be a little bit of blood in these boils, I expect. No, I think that's good. Now we apply the texture paint, and then the one done, which I can't complain at that. I think once we've got the texture paint on this guy, we'll cap it off there, as I can feel my hands starting to cramp up a little bit. So I don't fancy my hand cramping up live. That'll hurt a lot and suck for me, and not be entertaining to watch. Well, I'd like to hope you wouldn't be entertained by my suffering, but let me know if you would. I'll try to take it in the best stride, not be remotely offended or upset at the idea of people enjoying my suffering. But, yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Managed to get 2 done tonight. Oh, that's a big blob. That should do the job nicely. Yeah, as far as when I'll next be doing these, it will probably be a while. As I say, I need to figure out how to do this with the VTuber model. And VTube Studio apparently doesn't seem to cooperate too nicely with the second webcam. So the technical work we needed to get that working. I'm going to carefully put this around his feet. A little teensy tiny overspill isn't going to be the end of the world. As long as it doesn't look terrible. Taste may be subjective, but I have high standards for myself. I have to at least meet my own standards after all, don't I? So that's not the most entertaining part of it, where I'm going to dab along this here texture paint to get it all in position. I could probably use a shitty old brush as well to do this, but the texture tool I find to be useful. So I tend to keep fairly good camera brushes, so I don't exactly have many shitty brushes on hand. Maybe as the years go on I'll have plenty, but My painting's very on and off. I've felt inspired, so hence I'm painting. I will post the finished of these on Twitter once that's all good. So do keep an eye out there for the finished models. A bit more. Covering the base. Alrighty. There he is. That'll take an age to dry, so we'll let that dry. And admittedly, almost 2.5 hours. Need to get my stamina up for doing these kind of things, but sadly my hands are not quite agreeing with me. It's nothing medical, don't worry, it's just if I haven't painted in a while and I start painting for a long time, and a couple of hours worth of painting is enough to start the hand cramps. So, I need to rest those. And my voice has been on and off, so I don't want to do myself in too much. So, we will end it there, but thank you very much for watching. Thank you to everyone who's dropped in. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've been an absolute pleasure. Tomorrow will be Monster Hunter, and the Squishy Beam will return for that. Liza P after that, though I need Tommy to beat that clown, which, yeah, stay tuned for that one, that's going to be a pain in the ass. That's Monster Hunter. I think we're very close to the end of the main world storyline. Hopefully very close to Elatrion and Fatalis. I hope and pray. Other than that, I think there's XCOM 2 starting up. I've actually never completed XCOM 2, so if anyone would like to join me for that, even if it's just to go, hey, literally if anyone even messages, I will name someone after you. You do not have to follow, though if you do follow, I will obviously make sure to name someone after you, but just saying hello would be enough. Honest to God. Yeah. That's all for now. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Again, it's been a pleasure. And I will see you tomorrow from Monster Hunter World. Look forward to seeing you there. Bye for now.